Sorry it's a little late for the story, but I was doing some yard work outside. It was so nice. So today, I thought I'd read you the Story of Ferdinand. It's written by Monroe Leaf, and it's a really good book. It's a classic book. So I think they made a movie about it a couple years ago too, so you may have seen it, but I really like the story. All right. Once upon a time in Spain, there was a little bull, and his name was Ferdinand. All the other little bulls he lived with would run and jump and butt their heads together. Sounds like something a bull would do. But not Ferdinand. He liked to sit just quietly and smell the flowers. He had a favorite spot out in the pasture under a cork tree. It was his favorite tree, and he would sit in its shade all day and smell the flowers. My hands are dirty, kiddos, because I stained my porch. I just could tell you could see my fingers. It's stained. I wash my hands, I promise. Sometimes his mother, who was a cow, would worry about him. She was afraid he'd be lonesome all by himself. Why don't you run and play with the other little bulls and skip and butt your head, she would say. But Ferdinand would shake his head. I like it better here where I can just sit quietly and smell the flowers. His mother saw that he was not lonesome, and because she was an understanding mother, even though she was a cow, she let him just sit there and be happy. Sounds fair? Ooh. As the years went by, Ferdinand grew and grew until he was very big and strong. All the other bulls who had grown up with him in the same pasture would fight each other all day. They would butt each other and stick each other with their horns. What they wanted most of all was to be picked to fight at the bullfights in Madrid. Madrid is the capital of Spain, and bullfighting is a very popular sport there. But not Ferdinand. He still liked to sit just quietly under the cork tree and smell the flowers. These don't look like the most trusting bunch. One day, 5 men came in very funny hats to pick the biggest, fattest, roughest bull to fight in the bullfights in Madrid. All the other bulls ran around snorting and butting, leaping and jumping, so the men would think they were very, very strong and fierce and pick them. Makes sense. Ferdinand knew that they wouldn't pick him, and he didn't care, so he went out to his favorite cork tree to sit down. Uh-oh. What prediction would you be making at this point, boys and girls? He didn't look where he was sitting, and instead of sitting on a nice, cool piece of grass in the shade, he sat on a bumblebee. Well, if you were a bumblebee and a bull sat on you, what would you do? You would sting him, and that's just what the bee did to Ferdinand. Wow, did it hurt! Ferdinand jumped with a snort. He ran along, puffing and snorting, butting and pawing the ground as if he were crazy. Oh my. I wonder what's going to happen now. The 5 men saw him, and they all shouted with joy. Here was the largest and fiercest bull of all, just the one for the bullfights in Madrid. So they took him away for the bullfight day in a cart. What a day it was. Flags were flying, bands were playing, and all the lovely ladies had flowers in their hair. They had a parade into the bull ring. First came the bandereros, with long, sharp pins with ribbons on them to stick in the bull and make him mad. So those guys actually poke the bull with a pin. It's crazy. Next came the picadores, who rode skinny horses, and they had long spears to stick in the bull to make him madder. Yikes. Then came the matador, the proudest of all. He thought he was very handsome and bowed to the ladies. He had a red cape and a sword and was supposed to stick the bull last of all. Pretty mean sport. I like hamburgers myself, but I don't think that's the best way to do it. Then came the bull. And you know who that was, don't you? Ferdinand. They called him Ferdinand the Fierce, and all the bandoleros were afraid of him, and the picadores were afraid of him, and the matador was scared stiff. Whoa, look at that crowd. That had to take a long time to illustrate. Ferdinand ran to the middle of the ring, and everyone shouted and clapped because they thought he was going to fight fiercely and butt and snort and stick his horns around. But not Ferdinand. When he got to the middle of the ring, he saw the flowers in all the lovely ladies' hair, and he just sat down quietly and smelled. He wouldn't fight to be fierce no matter what they did. He just sat and smelled, and the bandoleros were mad, and the picadores were madder, and the matador was so mad he cried because he couldn't show off his cape and sword. So they had to take Ferdinand home. And for all I know is, he is sitting there still, under his favorite cork tree, smelling the flowers just quietly. He is very happy. I like that story. I think it was funny. I like how there was the mix-up that they thought he was such a fierce bull because he was stung by a bee. That's kind of funny. A lot of times people think that people who are taller or larger are really fierce and tough, and sometimes they can be the sweetest people and they would never want to fight at all. So it's kind of funny, and it sort of reminds me of that. I'm excited for tomorrow. We're going to be on Zoom again at 4:30, and I think you're going to like it, boys and girls. It's going to be a really funny one because we're going to play the game Would You Rather. So I'm just going to, you don't have to do anything to prepare for it. Just be there. So I'm going to have some really funny questions to ask you, and you'll make a choice and explain why, and we'll have a good time.